Alright, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to talk to you about today is my super simple initiative tracking system that uses nothing more than your Game Master screen and these initiative tracking cards. Now, these initiative tracking cards are made by GMW, which I think is Game Master's Workshop. You can probably find these online somewhere. But if you don't have the budget for that or can't find those suckers, a 3x5 no card works just fine as well. Now, when I first started out game mastering, I did what a lot of us do, and I just wrote down initiative order on a piece of paper like this. Everyone would roll for initiative, and then I would call out names and I'd write them down. I'd try to leave spaces so that if lower initiative and higher initiative, I could, put them in where it ranks or it comes in. And then I'd roll for the monsters. And sometimes you can see I didn't leave enough space, and so things would get crammed together. And this was a little tedious, involved writing, and took some time. And then at one point, I graduated to using little cards that I would place in order with magnets on a dry erase board. And I don't have B-roll of that, so you're going to have to suffice with B-roll of my beautiful painted minis. I did these all myself. And this is how my super simple initiative tracking system works. Each of my players has their name, their character's name, on one of these cards. And then I call for initiative, everybody rolls their initiative. My Game Master screen has these handy creases, these segments, and each one of them represents a range of initiative. So I will say, who has initiative above a 35? And Simu does, which is crazy because he always rolls super low. And then I'll say, who has initiative above a 25? And then a couple people have initiative above a 25. I'll throw them here. Oops, Bartleby goes first. We get their exact initiatives. Who has initiative above a 20? Oh, that's Krabby. We'll throw Krabby up there. Who's above a 15? And it turns out that Grimchaw and then Marv are both in the back of the pack, which Marv usually is like very first. But this is how it turns out for the player's initiative. And did you notice how super simple that was? And then you'll notice that I have grouped my monsters into monster groups. This is the blue group. They have their card. This guy is the boss. He's the red group. He has his own card. And then this is the yellow group. They have their own card. And then, using my handy dice tray, I roll the monsters initiative. Depending on what they roll, I will place them. This is like the above the 30 group. The red guy, the boss, came in over here below 20. We'll throw him there. And then the yellow guy, we'll just throw him right here. Now, one thing that you may be asking is, Luke, are you being super exact? Like, is this the exact perfect order according to how the dice rolled? Or are you kind of eyeballing things? That is an excellent question. One thing that I've learned over the years is that, number one, from my player's perspective, they have no idea what I rolled. They have no idea if my monsters were high or low. The second thing I've learned is that clustered initiatives by players or by monsters can often lead to a subpar combat experience. And this is what I mean. If for some reason my monsters had all rolled very, very high and they all got to go first, these players might be overwhelmed and you might have them off to a very big disadvantage out of the gate. And the converse is true too. If the players roll super well and they all go first, then the monsters might just get wiped out, and what should have been a challenging combat turns into an easy one. So my personal preference is to have players and monsters have their initiative spaced out just a little bit so that things don't become lopsided just because of dice rolls. So sometimes if the dice don't cooperate, then I might just space the initiatives out on my own. Other times I play it as it lies. Sometimes I roll dice, but they're phantom dice, and I completely ignore them. It's purely for the thematic, dramatic element of it, and I simply place my monster initiatives where I think they will work best for the most interesting combat, shall we say. This may not be your cup of tea. You may not like this at all. I think of this as curating the experience for my players. It might be borderline cheating, and some would say if you're going to roll dice, just play them as they lie, and I usually tend toward that point of view, but initiative is one of the few exceptions simply because lopsided initiative, one side or the other, can really influence things, sometimes positively for your players, other times very negatively. And I don't like seeing that happen simply because one side rolled initiative very poorly and the other side rolled well.
Editor Luke here. It occurred to me as I was editing this video that I did not mention that there's absolutely nothing wrong with lopsided initiative from time to time either. If the characters all really roll really well and they go first, first and they trounce the monsters, that's okay. That's realistic. Sometimes that happens. The converse is true too. Sometimes the monsters get to take all their turns first or close to it, and the characters will be off to a big disadvantage. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's realistic. So many times I'll do it both ways. Sometimes I will kind of fudge things a little bit. Other times I'll play it as it lies, because there is some verisimilitude to be had with that approach as well.
And of course you might say, Luke, instead of having just 3 monster groups, what if every single one of these monsters is its own initiative? So here I would have 7 monsters that would have their own initiatives on here. Then you wouldn't have to fudge dice or ignore dice. You could simply play it as it lies, and you would have all of your monsters more or less spaced out on the initiative order on the board. And while technically correct, do you know how tedious that would be to track initiative for that many different creatures? Big old pain in the butt. And at that point, I would ask you, is there any de facto difference between that and simply spacing things out like I do?
By the way, my Feybound Kickstarter may have ended, but for a limited time, you can still pre-order at the link in the description or pinned comment. Join over 2,000 backers and get the largest Fey-themed expansion for D&D 5e ever created. New player races, subclasses, monsters, Fey mechanics, magic items, campaign setting, and a 12-part adventure arc.
Now, in my next behind the GM screen video in this series, I'm going to show you how I use these little markers and dice to track hit points for my creatures instead of something super tedious like writing everything down on note paper. But that right there is my super simple initiative tracking system that streamlines everything. And if you want to see the entire series of my behind the Game Master screen, you can click this little bad boy right here. That'll take you to the playlist that'll show all of these videos in my series. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments, leave me a like and all that kind of cool stuff. And have yourselves a wonderful day. And until next time, happy game mastering.